Welcome, everybody. Vic and Jordan, thanks for joining us, and super excited to dive in on AI and GTM. That's a big topic.
That it is.
Definitely. So thanks everyone who was at the last session. Hope I gave you a good perspective of where we are, how we got here. A quick review. You have to understand why we have problems. The keys were there's a talent shortage, there's a competency gap because of the rapidness of having to hire in the last marketplace, 2012 to 2020. There's a lot of people who are struggling to figure out how to solve problems that they've never experienced before. And then, of course, I didn't get to this, but people exiting the market that have that core competency, either because they became wealthy and they were lucky, or they had great investments, or perhaps it was just time to leave. They're leaving with that knowledge as well. And so as that happens, people are turning to things like AI, just like they did before. You know, the cold calling is dead playbooks. Remember, Jordan and I on podcasts have laughed pretty hard about some of these books, and as well as cold emailing is dead. I mean, the playbooks and shortcuts and easy buttons are just crazy. So long and short is that what I'm hoping we could do with Jordan today is just have a fireside or kitchen side kind of conversation around how do you start these conversations internally? What are you looking for? What are your non-negotiables? You know, what kind of things do you need to have good shoring up before you start making decisions? So Jordan, why don't you just start, introduce yourself a little bit, and then I'll ask you the first question.
Sounds good. Yeah, good to be here. Jordan Henderson, VP of RevOps at Eversort. That nicely puts my title on there. That's really convenient. I am based in Dallas. I've been in RevOps for about 10 years in B2B SaaS. Eversort, for anybody who's not familiar, is a very much an AI company with our own model, not a chat GTP skin. We can talk about that a little bit. We were just acquired by Workday. We announced that last week. So that's super exciting, and excited to be here to talk about AI because my whole life is AI all day, every day.
Especially when they come in and say, I have a great idea, which is a great segue to what we're going to be talking about. It's also my favorite when you have somebody who's very excited about an idea that they have and they have demonstrated some success, but they're also a little bit frustrated with maybe some of the things they're challenged with. So first question is, what is some of the common things that you get asked for when it comes to your role in RevOps, sales ops, from, let's just pick on me, from sales development or sales leadership?
Tools. I get asked for tools from sales development, sales leadership endlessly, right?
Right.
When you go sort of sales development is honestly the key culprit most of the time. Is we need more tools. We need more tools. There's this tool that does this, and this tool that does this, and this tool that does this, and most of them don't really communicate well together or aren't really thought out. And a lot of them are, I think, relatively small companies that are just building a core product, particularly in AI right now. There's a lot of like, this is a 30-person company with 15 customers and they're just launching this thing, but we need it. We need it real bad on the sales development side. There's obviously a lot of problems that come with that, right? Usually, like, I think the problems that we're trying to solve, and some of these I think are really good problems to solve with AI, and some of them are less good. Like some of the core uses that I like to use it for are like initial email drafts. I think that's a great use case for business development, and call scripts, like first rough starts, right? Like you still have to personalize them, make them real, but it gets the conversation started. It makes that process easier. I also think there's a lot of room for AI in targeting. When we talk, like, everybody remembers like intent data was like all the rage, and everybody still talks about intent data. And there's probably somebody from like 6 Sense on the call who's going to message me after this. But and we went through that very much hype cycle on intent data, where it was like everything in the world is you need to be using this for all things all the time, always. And the models just really didn't feed well most of the time, and it didn't really work because the model never really worked, and it would all go back to that. But I do think AI can feed your intent data targeting model in the future, and it's starting to already, in a way that actually makes that an effective strategy, which we're starting to see that. And that, for me, I think is like quickly becoming a non-negotiable in how we use those sort of tools. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways, right? Even forecasting. I think AI and forecasting is become, much, much stronger and almost a must-have. I think most of the forecasting tools have it built in to some degree, and it's very, very helpful. For me, it doesn't replace, by the way, and Vic, you'll appreciate this. I still like force the weekly call where everybody has to go through their forecast and I can ask questions about their deals. It'll
Yep.
never replace that, in my opinion, but it's very helpful to get a
No.
clean view.
That actually partners really well with something I said at the end in the last session, which is you need a person sitting there checking, because sometimes just saying it out loud is just like, wait, what? The AI said that? I mean, in early solutions, we saw that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember the name of the company that the person who founded Marketo had for a short while, but
Oh, yeah, John Miller?
yeah, John Miller. I can't remember the name. It
Engagio.
had a whale on the. We tried to
Yeah,
use it.
Engagio, I think.
Engagio, and it was a great solution. But we had a lot of, starts and stops, and we were testing everything, Bombora, all kinds of stuff. And I'm not going to go into how and what we came out with, but just to your point, we'd have these head scratchers where it's like, we didn't know we were doing this. I'll tell you transparently, but we would go into a meeting with marketing, no different than a sales forecast. And we say these things out loud, and somebody go, wait, what? Say that again. And you say it out loud, and then they, on the board or in Tableau or whatever we were using, and they look at this and they're like, it's an impossibility.
Yeah.
And you're like, so I'm going to make up a number. So out of 100 attempts, we got 90% success. No, never. Either we undershot our effort and we left money on the table, which is usually not the case, or something's wrong.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's great.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking through like the one that the top of mind for me, because I love it. We use Gong for forecasting. I really like using Gong. There's an AI component for anybody who doesn't use it. When you're doing the forecast call, that literally you click the deal and it says, here's the risk factors that we've identified in this deal based on your historic wins and losses, right? And it'll like pop up. So as I'm going through that manual forecast call, I literally pop that up and go, okay, what about XYZ? Like read that.
Yeah.
It makes my job so much easier. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I see that in like Apollo, Chorus, Sales Loft. It's been there and it just keeps getting better. But to your point, it quickly, or maybe not your point, but something I thought of, is it can quickly spin out of control. In fact, you can lose control of those conversations, I believe. I've seen people in your position, they're just swimming, like they just get hammered from all different angles, which brings us back to this conversation. It's, how do you think of your position in revenue ops right now? Like, just think about the channels. So we covered sales development, kind of touched a little bit on marketing, touched a little bit about sales, but that's the departmental thing. Like, how does it roll? Like, just for anybody who's just new in their position, how does it roll up in terms of different pillars? How does it roll up to the board? Like, how do you think about the organizational style of each of these efforts?
Yeah, like using AI to roll up, like managing.
Let's just do a basic, and then we'll go to AI right next. So
like,
I'll give you a hint. It's like we have a North Star of $300 million, right? But there's a bunch of other stuff that we want there too. You take those numbers, and then you're organizing, right? And you're organizing not only the efforts and processes, but the data feeds into the board and into the decision maker's hands. At least that's the way I look at your role.
Yeah.
How do you think about a very simplistic manner? We don't have to go to the smaller detail, just high level.
Yeah, high level it. So we use for my roll up stuff when I'm thinking about communicating our GTM motion to the board or executives across the thing. And I sit on our ELT, so presenting it to me too most of the time. We use Sigma pretty aggressively, and the way I think about it is high level everything, right? So take your life cycle from the top, like literally lead to retention and advocacy, map it through, and what are the 2 metrics you care about at each stage of that funnel? Pump those into a Sigma dashboard that's connected. By the way, again, you could use AI in this because there's a lot of data manipulation tools that have AI components. But
you're stealing my next question.
Yeah, I'm stealing your next line probably. But
no, it's just my question. Keep going.
Yeah, you take Marketo, Salesforce, you plug them into a tool like Sigma. There's other options like Tableau, whatever you're comfortable using. I think Power BI is the other one that I think people are really big on right now. And just have that automated. And part of that is I remember doing this 7-8 years ago, and people that are older in their career remember this, is we used to have massive spreadsheets, and everything was exported from different systems and pasted into spreadsheets and then all piped through from there. Now it's easy to automate. Even the spreadsheet component, if you're at a place where you don't have Power BI or you need quicker things, there's connected like Coefficient where you can drive directly from those tools into your reporting, which one of the ways that this is very helpful is for a lot of reports, you're going to present it quarterly as a RevOps person, right? Quarterly, weekly, whatever that looks like. You can actually just share the outgoing report links to them, and they can go check it anytime they want, which is almost like a data room when you're going through an acquisition, which is so much different than it was 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago, it was the board sees something, and then they'll see something 3 months from now again. And the executives don't have that level of alignment either, because they're not seeing what other teams are doing. And now our responsibility is on a weekly basis. The marketing team should know all the sales team's data, and the sales team should know all the marketing. The CX should know all of the above as well, right? And be in those conversations, because they can be helpful there.
Right. So if I simplify it even further, we've gotten to this place where we have a good spread of simplistic KPIs that have been proven in the marketplace that, whether you follow Bessemer or 10 Down or any of these other groups, right? We have proven directional points, and then each business will find their secret KPI, and then they'll calibrate that to as well. I mean, at least all of the exits that I've had, we had something that we never shared with anyone until either after the acquisition or after it was no longer valid. So for example, there was a top ERP company, top 2, that, and I've said this to people that work there and they still say no, but I'm going to tell you guys, it was absolutely true, that we had our ICP nailed down so hard, and we had data such as intent, engagement, and deal velocity data, that we would leave the deal. We'd sit there and say, one of us doesn't belong at the table, and we're just going to leave. And the customers would be begging us to sell, and we went. But when we stayed, we won 75% of those deals. True.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody has those. So you align all of this, and you know what you're looking for. So now it leads to my next question, which is, okay, I've got my sales data, my marketing data, my demand gen data, my lead gen data, that is BDRs, SDRs. I've got product and engineering, and then I've got this overarching operational, particularly if you're building product. So I've got all this data, and it's going into Sigma, and we're able to start to see and relate it. Now, what am I looking for? And this is a question from the last session, actually. In your opinion, what am I looking for before I even say, hey, let's use a little bit of the AI, and when you just use Gong because you made it, you said it. Before I even do that, it might be in the product. Before I use it, what am I going to do?
So identifying where to use it is tough, and partially because you have, if you're a buyer or you're in RevOps, you're going to get 70 emails a week from people, and I don't want to harp on cold.
No, you're right.
You're going to get 70 emails a week from people telling you you should be using it for this. You should be using it for this. You should be using it for this. And you should know in the back of your head, they all have a very vested interest in getting you to use it for that. And if I was sitting here and saying, you need to use it for contract intelligence, you would know that I have a very vested interest in you believing that that's true.
Just like Jamie Dimon has a vested interest in getting everyone back into commercial buildings. Because
if you own commercial real estate, you want people in commercial buildings. Like, that is a very straightforward. It's not. It's
Return
not
to work. We have to, because your portfolio. Keep going.
Right, but it doesn't necessarily make sense for your business, right? And so solve the problems you actually have. That's the thing that you need to stress, particularly with when you go back to the initial question, like sales development, sales leaders will come to you like, we should buy this and we should buy this.
Right.
Are they actually solving a problem that you have, or are they just solving a problem that exists in general, right?
Time out. I want to repeat that. It's very important. Solutions without a problem do not get bought.
Right.
And solutions that get bought without a problem usually diminish credibility in the business for you. So everybody that's listening, if you want to keep Jordan on your team of people who support you, the most important thing that you can bring to the table is a true problem. Now, you might not have it baked, but you really need to at least have a third or more of it before you approach either Jordan or the person next level behind him that will help you finish the rest of the 2/3 that's missing.
Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt, but that's like a critical thing that I was looking for in this conversation to begin with, is that problems have to exist. So keep going on this.
No. I mean, that's it's a very valid point to bring up, and know that the problem exists with data, right? It can't be just, I believe this exists, or this is I talked to a rep and they told me they're having a hard time with XYZ. So frequently if you're a sales manager and somebody comes and does that, even on my team, right? If somebody comes to me with that, so frequently my internal screaming is that's an enablement issue. Like this is purely, we can just solve this by training you, right? And that's so frequently the problem. And so yeah, going back to like I have to have an actual problem, and that goes to the data you're sharing with the board. It should be enough information for you to identify where you have holes in your funnel, in your whole customer cycle, right? And so pick those spots and then go into that and go, how can I solve this? And maybe AI is a component of that. Maybe that's a place where you can do that. And go back to the forecasting is maybe on a quarterly basis you are missing your forecast by 30% over and over and over and over again. That's a place where, okay, great, maybe we should use Gong's AI forecasting to drill deeper on deals on a weekly basis, and we can use that to sort of power this without adding a lot of extra resources because this tool already exists and we already have it, right?
Right. I think this conversation's I've been watching a lot of these documentaries that are coming out, that there's been a lot of documentaries about the Apollo program because we're building towards the moon again. So some of them are actually movies, a little fantasy sprinkled in, and some of them are true documentaries. I think what you just described is similar to what we did in our space program, which is let's just see if we can launch something in the air.
Yeah.
And then once we launch something, okay, now let's see if we can do a little bit more with a little bit more control. And
yeah,
if you approach AI in that way, you'll have fewer exploding rockets. I mean, you're still going to fail, but I don't know, maybe it won't be a mortal outcome. I know we've had some of those mistakes. It's a risk in every program, but in general, for the sake of your career or for the sake of the company's health, starting small, like you just described, is probably the best start. So with that in mind, today, you talk to a lot of people. So let's stay away from where you work because it's just good hygiene there. Let's just think about, classic Series B, C, 200 employees. They've been in business 5, 6 years, 10 years, whatever. And, they've got a pretty good thing going, but, the market's challenging. They're sliding backwards, even though they're great. So they want to go faster, right? So where would you start? I mean, obviously it's a fictional model, but think about some of the conversations you've had. Where would you put the first idea?
The first idea
of AI, excuse me, just applying AI to GTM. Yeah.
You use it to do a full analysis. Well, a couple of places where I would start first. Full analysis, TAM, SAM, SOM, ICP.
Nice. Say it again one more time for the crowd.
Full analysis, TAM, SAM, SOM, ICP. Total addressable market, serviceable addressable market, serviceable obtainable market, and then ideal customer profile, right? It's essentially a waterfall of how you get to the people you're going to target. If you really have that dialed in, you can protect your seller's time and your marketing budget, right? Because if you've really got a strong, serviceable, attainable market, your marketers know exactly who you can go after and not bring junk in that's going to feed that. When you go to like Series B companies, a lot of times you get to Series A, Series B just by brute force. You're just, you can get pretty far just by getting a good team of like 8 to 10 sellers and telling them get after it, right? And we've all done that. But when you go to that next level, you need to get more dialed in. You need to spend, very targeted on your marketing side. Your sellers need to have at bats that are meaningful, where they're not just getting junk pitches. And that's where I would start. Like very first thing, if that's not right, everything downstream is broken anyways. And so we can't fix anything downstream until we fix that. That's the very first thing. The fun one that I always think is really dumb, by the way, but like you can have because I do this at a lot, like companies will say like conversion rates are down or whatever, and one thing I'll go is I'll put their website in an AI, like a chat GPT type thing, and say, tell me what this company does, or I'll, like take a description off their website, paste it in, and summarize this for me. And I'll take it back and say, okay, what do you guys do? And they'll tell me their elevator pitch. And those two things will be like wildly different. Right. And it gives you a good optics of, okay, this is what you're actually telling the world you do versus what you actually do. And so these two things need to come together, because even if you have your TAM, SAM, SOM, ICP right, your messaging is all wrong. So you're still going to be like crazy. And so then fix those two things first. You can't go to market without those two things.
I'd add one more thing to that, Jordan, that I've done twice that helped quite a bit is I've been at companies doing that same exercise as a kind of audience member with the ability to raise my hand and say, you should look, shine a flashlight, but not really having a decision. And I remember I was at one company that I said, what do you think the customers are actually buying? And they told me it was basically a combination of the website and the pitch, which were already broken.
Yeah.
And so I did this a couple of times and it started to get antagonistic. So rather than continue and make people pissed, I just basically went to my VP of sales and said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call 50 customers and ask them what they bought. I only got to 25 because the answers are so glaringly.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't that we were wrong, but the tip of our spear was actually in the back of the pipe.
Yeah.
So what people were buying was not at the front. And that changed everything you're talking about.
That's a really valuable point. Go talk to your damn customers. And sorry to swear,
Exactly.
but like, because
Yeah.
they bought for a reason. What is the reason? Do you know? Do they? And even like competitive analysis, right? Like, go to the customers that you were going against competitor A and ask them why they chose you. There's your battle card. You don't have to like
Absolutely
make the fictitious reasons why you're better. Somebody decided you're better.
And it's no salt on the ground here, but sometimes founders and passionate product people, they love the work that they did and they should, because it's incredibly difficult to achieve. But if the reason why the customer is buying is not that, but what they do lead with leads to your passion, that configuration changes the 4 acronyms that David put in the chat for us, the TAM, SAM, SOM, and ICP. Because if you don't know that and you calibrate to what the founder / innovator is excited about, you're going to continue to have those mixed results. And then anything we apply to it's not going to work. Well, so anyway, let's keep going.
It's a persona thing, right? So if you get to that, it's who you're targeting. This is valuable to this person, but B is valuable to this person, and they're buying because of B, then I should be targeting over here. This is the persona I should be going after. But because we're focusing on product and this, we're focusing on target A, and that's not the right persona. So we're not getting in the conversations with the people we actually need to, and that's going to kill us downstream.
Have you ever used AI to break an argument yet? Like, for example, we have a tie on 2 features in this fictitious conversation. So then we're like, okay, but the data might be so big or so difficult to see and trend. Have you ever used it yet to say, run through pricing, acquisition speed, cost, the CAC, any of that? Have you ever tried doing any of that yet?
I haven't. It's a good idea. It's a very novel idea. I just frankly haven't run into that sort of friction very frequently.
I've done it by hand with 10 years of data, but that still didn't make me feel as confident. I'm pretty good at spotting trends. In fact, I've made my career on that. But just talking about this, I'm like, well, so I've got a top 4, but now that I have top 4, maybe one of the top 2 could be a great choice. What's better for the business? Because maybe these 2, I can go with either. So now I'm back to my North Star, or what the business really wants, which is how we started the conversation.
Yeah. It's a very interesting use case. I've done that analysis, and I usually, if it's like features, I default to what are they actually using, typically, right? Like, because people will tell, if you go talk to 20 customers and 10 of them say I love product A and 10 of them say I love product B, go look at their usage data if you don't have it, and that will tell you what they might not love
in 3 months.
A.
How are you using this?
Right. They might not love product A, but they're using the heck out of it, and that's what really counts, right? Because usage leads to retention and advocacy, and so the customer conversations, this is like a trust but verify thing, but you could use AI to do the verification to a degree, right? Which would be very helpful. Yeah.
Well, it's also accumulation too, right? I talked about this in the last session, is that there's a bunch of different ways to use AI. You accumulate it, you feed it, or you use it to make decisions, many other things. But so I can use it to accumulate this data we're talking about and sort it out. I know Gong does that really well with chat and stuff. SalesLoft just came out with some really great stuff. So did Outreach. Just those are 3 that I'm exposed to directly as a former BDR leader. But gathering that information and helping me box it up so that we can look at it in smaller potential is great, especially if I come to your office. Because the first thing you're going to ask me is, okay, dude, I got 15 minutes. What are you here for? Yeah. If I don't have a really tight, like, here's what you said you wanted, and this is what I can't get, and this is what I could gather, and I hand you the package, then you'll look at it and go, oh, yeah, I'm going to have my team look at this.
Yeah. No, it's a very helpful resource for that. Like, The other ones I'm excited about, by the way. I love Gong's for AI. SalesLoft, I think will be really cool. I'm a many times SalesLoft buyer. I think it's just a great tool.
Yeah.
Outreach is really great. I think SalesLoft and Outreach are very much in parity most of the time. Nooks AI we're using quite a bit. My BDR team loves Nooks. Like they just absolutely, and it's been very helpful for solving some problems as it relates to prospecting for us. So
Right.
that's one of the ones my BDR manager was right about solving a problem on. We went and did that. So, but there's a lot out there, and for solving those problems specifically.
That's a question I forgot to ask you. It's like, well, how do you make those decisions? Obviously, there's a marketplace. I mean, if you've looked at these graphical maps, I presented a picture in my presentation. I mean, it's like microfiche now at the library. Zooming in on a pinpoint. It's like there's thousands of solutions.
Yeah.
Obviously, they don't look. If they weren't successful, they wouldn't exist. Some of them will drop away. But that map suggests that there is a use case. So that means, how do we do this?
It's tough. I did a whole hour thing on evaluating tech last week at OpsStars, and the underlying premise is you don't need all the tools you think you need.
Nope.
Look for the tools that actually compile multiple tools into one. And I hate to say it, but like a Zoom Info, you get a lot of bang for your buck, right? You can get a lot of different data points out of it. It does a lot of different things. That's a very valuable tool. The little one-off ones are going to leave you with a Frankenstein tech stack that doesn't communicate to each other. And the problem with that goes all the way back to how do we communicate this up? If my tools, if I Frankenstein this tech stack that's 20 different tools that all do really cool things, but they don't speak to each other and they don't speak to Salesforce, all that data is just lost. And I can't actually communicate any of the cool stuff I'm doing anyways, which, don't get this wrong, we want to be very good at our jobs. We also need to communicate that we're very good at our jobs. That is an equally important part of this. And if we can't show that our company is doing well, we're failing. And so they got to connect. And most of the time, a lot of these, like there was a MarTech survey like 6-7 years ago that said there was like 10,000 MarTech tools in the market. And then I think 3 years later, sales tech like surpassed that number, and it has only gone up since then. And you're looking at a sea of tens of thousands of tools. Most of them don't have integrations. Most of them won't connect with specific tools that you need. Pick the ones that do, and do it well and do it easy, that you can get them set up.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then UI, right? Because the other piece of it is will your team actually use it? Does it keep them where you want them to be?
Our favorite argument, right?
Yeah. Like
I'm taking your license. If you go look on LinkedIn, Jordan and I've had fake arguments on LinkedIn where he's like, I'm taking your license. And I said, but I need it.
Yeah.
So, you remember that?
Haven't logged in 3 months. You're clearly using it well. Yeah.
So that means that sort of a statement and a question. It means that you can't leave Evisort and go to another company and just deploy your playbook in terms of this conversation. I mean, some of it might fit, but isn't that a trade-off? And you just brought up a couple of good trade-offs because that was the last part of this conversation. But isn't that a recipe for having a healthy trade-off value?
Yeah, that is. Yeah, you can't run the same playbook over and over and over again. As much as everybody would like to tell you that like it's a simple playbook and we'll install it and run. And I spent 3 years in a private equity firm. Everybody likes to believe that that's true, particularly on that side of the fence. It's not. There are core things that are must-haves, right? Like for me, I gotta have Salesforce. I would prefer to have SalesLoft. I'd like to have Gong in place. I'd like to have lean data in place. These to me are like sort of core things. Chili Piper would be very close to that as well. Past that, those are sort of the fundamentals. And even there's gonna be instances where they don't make sense. Past that, it's really going to depend on where I'm seeing problems, right? That's really the thing. Where are the gaps? And then I'm filling gaps.
I've had that experience as well, where at one company, Seamless AI, wasn't working very well for us at all. And another company was the most amazing solution for us for a variety of different reasons. Same thing with SalesLoft versus Outreach. Same thing with Sendoso versus ReachDesk. Right? I mean, I love all of them. Yes, I'm not going to actually share my absolute favorites, but I ran into that situation where I can't use my favorite, and I'm all, and then we finish, and I'm like, man, I'm glad I didn't do that.
Yeah,
this is so amazing.
The database one, like Seamless, ZoomInfo, LeadIQ, like that it's a great example because it's really easy to sort of like vision how that would change company to company. Like I
Yep.
worked with an ed tech company 3-4 years ago, doing some consulting, and like ZoomInfo is not great for ed tech. They haven't built it out. That's not a good target
Right.
audience for their customer base. Whereas like LeadIQ might be. So we go in a different direction with that, where the next one, ZoomInfo, might be the better tool. It changes company to company.
So we have 1 minute left before everyone has to go to lunch. So let's just let's do a quick one for you, Jordan. Just think about the conversation. Top 3 things that you would want to emphasize from the entirety of this conversation. There's nothing right or wrong about it, but just top of mind.
Yeah, TAM, SAM, SOM, ICP. If you haven't done it, do it. Revisit it every 6 months to a year, no more than a year, to be honest on that, because it will change as your product changes, and your product should be changing pretty quickly if you're early stage. Buy tools for problems that you actually have, not just because they solve problems that exist in general. That's 2 so far. There is no playbook, and you have to break some things to figure it out. There's a Savannah Bananas marketing interview where the guy talks about how Savannah Bananas, everybody's familiar, they failed at every marketing thing they did, basically every step of the way, and then the 5th one would stick, and that's what they would go with. And that's how they've sort of built this brand as this awesome marketing engine. I mean, they're an incredible marketing engine. You're going to break some stuff. Now, break it carefully and don't make a bad name for yourself and figure that out. But you're going to break some stuff, and you got to keep trying and iterating and figuring that out.
And that brings in my number 4, which is don't do anything alone. The 90s are over. There's no iron fist. And when everybody tries to use one, we usually break everything instead of one thing. So whether you're a BDR leader or a senior investor or VC or founder or CEO or SVP of marketing, we all hurt or win when we do this together. So it doesn't matter if you're married to AI in a way or not. What matters is that we get one foot in front of the other and we start going towards that North Star and we hit our KPIs. We should not care about how we get there. We should care that we got there.
True.
So the tool of conversation is not about ideologies, politics, or religion. It's about the culture of good. So that would be my 4th one.
Solid. Very solid 4th.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much, Jordan. I look forward to seeing you sometime soon, next time I'm around your area, bud.
Appreciate it. Good to see you, Vic.
All right, everyone. We'll answer your questions offline after this. We're going to take a break now. Thank you again.
Thanks, everybody.